You have to try it. If it comes to you, you have to try it. You have to work with people and get them to go there. One of the lessons, great lessons I learned working with really talented subjects, people that were artists, is working with Brad Pitt. And Brad always wanted to go to the next level. If he was going to commit to the project, no matter what magazine it was for, and we shot for a couple of different magazines, he wanted it to be at least a 2-day experience. He wanted it to be elevated, and he wanted to have some time to get to know what your idea was and how he could best serve in making an event.
And so I thought about what is it that I can teach through photography that would benefit anyone. And that is, again, referring to a theme that I introduced a while back, the experience of seeing with conscious attention. And that photography is a tool for learning how to do that, and that this is something that would benefit anyone. That seeing with conscious attention and seeing with self-awareness in a way feeds people, feeds part of the mind.
Do not come to their level. And that wonderful advice of let the bygone be bygone. If you can set an example that you are an Armenian by descent, a very proud Armenian, you are a Canadian, you are a citizen of the world. By your example, you can create more goodness than you would defiant and challenging.
What I did instead of going to college was go to the factory. And Andy would often give me advice, like parental advice about, oh, you shouldn't say that kind of thing. If I made some crack in a social situation that he thought was inappropriate, he would tell me. The factory was a real turning point for me because I started thinking aesthetically in a way I hadn't before.
You have to be quick as a photographer. You have to not to be noticed too much.
So I think there are some really important things coming our way, really important art forms coming our way, which will shape all of our lives and shape all of what we do. Artificial intelligence, virtual reality, robotics are huge waves about to crash over us culturally and globally. And I think they're really going to change, how we all interact, how we all work, how we all live, etc., etc. And I think really that's what we should be looking. We should be, as creative people, and I take it you're all here for this creative evening, then we're all creative people, we should be in control of those things. We shouldn't leave it down to business. It's really important that the creative people take control of the new art forms that are coming, and they are massive art forms.
To get to that point where someone is just open, you've got to earn it. When a flower just opens to the light, that's what it is.
Do you think if you were starting out today, you would be successful as a photographer?
Oh, that's a great question. Of course I would. No, but the problem today is, everybody talks a lot about digital. The real danger of digital is that people shoot digital in the studios. I don't know if you have seen that. I don't know what Nick does, but you have a screen in the studio, and that is going to take the balls away from the photographers in the next 10 years, and you don't have anybody after who can even decide what to do, because everybody looks at the same time as that screen. And photography cannot be democratic.
Polaroid mate of one of the boys in my studio and sat down and gave myself the benefit of the doubt.
And what did you say to yourself, Mr. Karsh? I mean, having investigated your own history.
That you have to be, set a good example to amateur photographers, that self-photographs, self-portraits could be made rather interesting.
I don't believe you should ever allow your tools to dominate the message.
I think a good photograph has to be something that evokes a response from an individual or from someone or from yourself.
Great design is when all those things take a back seat and you get the message.
Sometimes you know when you've got a good picture, you know. But not always, sometimes it's a surprise when you look at the contact sheets. This is a very good photograph. I mean, You couldn't make this happen. You have to be quick, and you have to have the camera with you all the time, ready to shoot. That's how you can get a picture like that.
It's a very powerful connection. And that is what photography feels like. At the end of it, you've got the aesthetic. That comes last.
If you want to build a body of work and you want to have a long-term career, you always need to second guess yourself. You always need to work at improving your craft. You always have to just push the boundaries in order to be able to have that excellence and to keep coming back to it and to keep being curious.
There's so many things you can photograph. The motion, the accidents, you know, I've always thought it was magic. I mean, photos can be magic if you have a little accident involved.
You should never rehearse a shoot, you should never practice a shoot, you should never draw a little sketch of what you're going to do before you go in there, because it's about the moment. If I was imagining what I was going to photograph tonight, I was going to pick up my camera and take your photograph, I wouldn't know how you'd look. I mean, I might know physically how you'd look, but I wouldn't know what that pink light was doing to you or what the girl next door, how she was leaning on you. I wouldn't know any of those things. And those are all important things if I was taking your photograph. So what I have to do if I was taking your photograph, I'm sorry to single you out, what I have to do if I was taking your photograph is I have to respond to what I see, not what I imagine I'm going to see. So it's really important not to prepare in those ways when you go to take an image of somebody.
How did you find people? Did you go to small little places?
Well, it was better to photograph there. It was more atmosphere. It was, it would be more real what you could get. It's a big country, you know, there's a lot. And it was wonderful to take a trip across America to see all that. I mean, that's how you learn about the country.
And did you know by then that photography was intriguing to you? I mean, you
Yes,
talked about
yes.
being 9 years old and doing the whole thing with Louise.
I wanted to
image of
be a
Louise.
writer in high school. I was the editor of the high school. I was the poet laureate of New York City.
Yeah,
I
right.
couldn't graduate,
But you were
couldn't
the
pass
poet laureate.
hygiene, but I was the poet laureate of New York City and the co-editor with James Baldwin of the DeWitt Clinton Magpie, which was the best literary high school magazine, and thought I'd be a writer. And I realized at 18 that there was I could be dyslexic for all I know. There's something about concentration of a certain kind, education of a certain kind, that to this day, I have to learn what I learn obliquely. I can't get a book, read it as you can, and come out with knowledge.
And how do you learn? People talk to you, you experience it yourself.
Just through experience and through enthusiasms and following those enthusiasms.
It is frightening when you do a photograph because you never know how you're going to do it. And I've got a picture to do. I'm going to work for Vogue on Monday, Tuesday next week. I'm in Brighton photographing for Vogue under the new editor, Edward Enfield, who I love and is a great friend. Anyway, I'm terrified because I've got no idea how I'm going to do it. I'm taking a simple camera with me. I'm not taking any lights. I've got 3 models. And I've got no idea what I'm going to do. I'm going to spend the next 5 days worrying myself about it because I don't know how I'm going to make the first shot. But that's been the same for the last 40 years. And in a way, that's the thing you probably can't lose and shouldn't lose, because then, if you get too complacent, the shots won't be any good. I think you have to feel that feeling of fear, that feeling of pressure, that feeling of you have to do it, but you're not really sure how to do it. I think that's really important in how we create imagery.
I photographed every day. I had a camera with me all the time. Well, maybe photography is that way, the longer you work on it, the more likely you get good pictures because you photograph every day, and if you do that, it works out. It takes, 60 pictures every day, so it has to work out.
I was told that if you want to endear yourself to Hemingway, you must appreciate his favorite cocktail, and that was daiquiri. So immediately as I arrived to Havana, I went directly to the La Floridita Club and tried to do my homework there. And as I sipped the first cocktail of daiquiri, there was a revolution broke all around me. They were firing. So rather than to surrender the drink, I sat down on the carpet and enjoyed it. And the next day when we met him, early morning, when the American ambassador took me to introduce me to him, the official left early in the morning, about 8:30, and suddenly Hemingway went to the kitchen and shouted, "Karsh, what will you have to drink?" I said, "Daiquiri, sir." Oh, he said, "Good God, at this hour of the day?" So this is often, I mention to would-be young photographer that sometimes excessive preparation can play boomerang.
I think it's very important to just realise you don't need so many lights to make something look really great. And actually, to be honest, I would work much more in the other way. I think if you can do it with one light, you should. You're really trying to, what you're doing is you're saying something by what you're showing. So if you're showing just what you want to see, just the most minimal thing, then you're really speaking in a much more pure way. So don't overlight things. In my opinion, don't overlight things. And don't worry about the shadows and the contrast of it. Indulge yourself in them and enjoy them.
If anything, if something goes wrong with a photo shoot, it's my fault. I really feel it's up to me. It's my responsibility. I'm supposed to make this thing work. And there's a lot of psychology involved in it. And you have to make it work. Whatever is going wrong. If I don't get a good picture, I don't blame my subject. I blame me.